Good evening, Uganda. The National Unity Platform is this country's biggest opposition party, both by seats in parliament and by marginal votes from the presidential election. The political pressure on the party is to represent the diverse opposing views of Ugandans to the way they are being governed, and to hold checks and balances may require NUP to think fast and different on a range of issues. Tonight on the spot is the leader of opposition, the Hon Matthias Mpuuga, who is in charge of the party's legislative agenda in parliament. Honorable Matthias Mpuuga, thank you so much for having honored our invitation. I say a warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Patrick, and good evening, viewers.
I've just been watching a TV story here on NTV tonight, and I saw you and your colleagues of NUP, or the entire NUP leadership, launching what you have called Kunga Uganda.
Yeah.
What is this all about?
Well, Patrick, the NUP is a young party in all essence. It started barely 2 years ago, and it's trying to put its footing into the length and breadth of Uganda, and we have over the last 6 months embarked on a campaign to mobilize, to recruit, later on train, with a view to deploy eventually well identified, oriented and selected individuals to represent this party at different stages. So the mobilization of NUP membership is on. And you see, because we're a young party, at the last election, we had so many Ugandans voting us, but you're not so sure whether we were voted by supporters or members. And you know for a fact that the two are different. So for us to be able to understand, to have a clear idea of where we stand in terms of membership, because it's members that actually help the party to stand, and we are mobilizing to make sure that we can have an idea of where the members of NUP, because the voters of NUP can vary depending on the issue that will arise at any one stage. Yeah. So we are trying to put our foothold in every corner of the country, and that you saw today.
So the Kunga Uganda is like the rallying call.
Yeah, it's the rallying call for mobilization.
Ugandans to come and understand your ideas.
Exactly.
And you sell to them the idea of
exactly
where you want Uganda to be. Does that mean that we are going to see the NUP leadership, traverse Uganda, try to have some meetings and rallies? Is that the intention as well?
Invariably, it should be, and it is one of our major deliverables after this has been launched today by the party president. And all and sundry have been flagged off to go and embark on this. And at the Secretariat, we are going to filter how we are going to follow up with these mobilized, persons to go and follow them up, because all of them are charged with the duty to go and mobilize others. Then we shall follow up, because eventually the party is preparing to undertake grassroots elections, in the coming months, to make sure that we have a bottom-up arrangement in determining the leadership of the party.
Experience has shown me that every time NUP decides to go out and meet Ugandans, you find yourselves in a collusion course, sometimes with the police or even the military. I hope you know what you're up against on this time around as well.
Patrick, we cannot speak for the police. You'll host them and ask them why they do what they do. Our duty and space is to go and speak to the people, because it is legitimate. As long as our actions are legitimate, we would go out of our way to go and speak to the people. You invite the police, the IGP, to come and inform the country whether NUP is a legitimate, agency, is a legitimate organization, and therefore they have no space. I am asking this,
Hon Matthias Mpuuga, out of the precedent I have seen, that every time most times when you've tried to move out as NUP and do something spectacular, you find yourselves either disrupted and stuff like that. So if you keep doing the same thing and you expect different results, No,
Patrick, it's a debate about the polarizing politics of Uganda. That you have this pseudo, democracy, where you have the law on the book saying you're a political party registered. Legitimately, you have a series of activities that you are allowed to carry on. One such activity is mobilization and even holding public meetings. And then on the other hand, you have an outlaw police state that believes that when you do that, you're actually disrupting the status quo, as if that is unconstitutional.
Yes, I'm not doubting, I'm not even refuting the fact that you have the constitutional right
let me ask you
to do political mobilization.
Let me answer succinctly. We are not into this to play to the rules of the military and the police, because they do not represent the letter and the spirit of our constitution. We are not conformists that because they have said no, we shall go home and sleep. We have a duty to citizens because we are a party. We have a duty to members. We have a duty to supporters. We have a duty to the nation to make sure that we oppose an attempt to freeze the space in which you are supposed to exercise the right to association and the right to assemble and even debate legitimately how we want our country to be run. The right to debate this is not going to be determined by the IGP or the Army Command or any other person or the DEPC. It's a space we're going to fight to have in whichever way feasible.
Okay, let me just try to pause here, and I want to take you to Serere because I'm sure you're interested in this. Sure. Because in Serere right now, they are announcing results of that parliamentary by-election. So maybe we're going to Serere.
King Emmanuel, Independent, 15,638. Onguricho Martin, Independent, 2,523. Owichoro Philip, NRM, 13,206. Total number of valid votes cast for candidates, 35,954. Total number of rejected invalid ballot paper, 812. Total number of ballot papers counted, 36,766. Total number of spoiled ballot papers, 170. Accordingly, as returning officer for Serere Electoral District, and in accordance with section 58, clause 1 of the Parliamentary Elections Act, as amended, I declare Omoding Emmanuel, who has obtained the largest number of votes, to be the elected candidate for Serere County Constituency, Serere Electoral District. Thank you. I therefore, on that note, invite Omoding Emmanuel to come forward and receive a copy. Thank you.
So much our team in Serere for bringing us that news, and congratulations to Omoding, who has, I think, taken the seat for his late father, who died in an accident on December 19th, the late Okabi. So I think that is wonderful to see. Omoding, I suppose, is an independent candidate who seemed to have trounced both the NRM, NUP, and FDC. And congratulations to the young man.
Patrick, for the record, NUP never had a candidate.
I know you supported,
but we supported Ali Salaso,
yeah,
the ANT candidate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, by the way, now that, what do you make of that? First of all, I know we're digressing a little, but it's important we do.
Yes, certainly. I found initially part of the confusion that is the Electoral Commission in delivering about boxes without seals, and you're like, you Justice Byabakama, in this era and time, you cannot even handle a small by-election in a small confinement of a constituency, and you want to come back to Kampala and occupy the same seat. You know, this is really very disturbing. But and the same gentleman...
Most of the allegations were that it is going to get rigged for the benefit of the NRM, and that has not been the case.
You are sure the NRM did not rig this election? When actually we have pictures of the NRM distributing money to people, 2,000, 1,000?
For Omoding?
No, for whichever. So if you do not win, it does not take away the fact that you rigged the election. Stealing, rigging means working outside the realm of the law that governs the election. And the NRM, that's their game. They can never stop rigging. Even if they are contesting alone, they rig. Even their own internal elections are stolen.
It was going to be very hard for the people of Serere, really, you know, emotionally, for a young man who has lost his father, maybe and mother on the same day. I mean, somehow Ugandans were going to think about this, and he's there. He said he's stepping up. It was going to be extremely hard.
I have not met him. I don't know him.
I also don't.
I worked with his father.
I know the events that worked around, you know, on the 19th, what happened.
Yeah, his father was a very decent man. We worked together with Parliament. Very calm, very understanding, imaginative. Probably they looked at this as a way
and look at the tragedy, and look at the son who's stepping up. The people of Serere County said, you know what?
I don't know the son, but I wish him luck. Hopefully he's able to find his bearing, regardless of the nobility of his ancestry, to step up and be his own and cut out his own space as a political leader.
So when do you start Kunga campaign? When do you get to the field?
Well, I'm not going to announce dates, but you know, now that this has been done and flagged off, it remains the duty of the Secretariat now to roll out a timetable for all the regions, and then we shall be able to announce like we normally do. It takes resources, human and financial. When they are ready, we will be able to roll out. But what I can tell the country is that after the flag off, then the people that have been selected in the different areas are going to start on the tidbits to put up a framework that are going to use to make sure that the NUP does mobilize nationwide. So we'll be on the ground. We're not going to announce dates. And of course, some of the mobilization we shall do is not going to be necessarily at State Square. It's going to be a little bit covert.
Okay.
To be able to shield and protect some of our enclaves.
You know, you start this Kunga campaign more or less at the same time when President Yoweri Museveni is also beginning his presidential tour. And you know, always midway of the term, he does the tour around the country. He's just started with Acholi now, and probably you'll also be starting with any region. And for some people, that is going to be understood to mean like a serious, more or less like a campaign of sorts, because the NRM, perhaps that's what it is.
Politics by its nature is 24/7. We are not a cooperative union growing coffee. We are not into rearing animals. We are into politics meant to change the trajectory of this country. So it is 24/7. Whatever Mr. Museveni and his people are doing, they have a stronghold over the state over the last 37 years.
But do you appreciate the fact that... I have
not educated myself on the coincidence.
Yes, do you appreciate the fact that when he's beginning his presidential tour, NUP is launching the Kunga campaign?
But what you need to know is that the Kunga campaign actually began some time back in selecting the team that have been launched today. What we've seen today is the launching of the activity, but the team leaders have already been selected. So it's a continuation. Ours is a continuation of work that has been going on for the last 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So if he's doing a catch-up, Mr. Museveni is doing a catch-up because of us, that's his trouble. And we're not answerable to him.
So let me just move away from the Kunga campaign, because I started with that because that's what was newsy. Yeah. But it was good to see the Honorable Segirinya and the Honorable Sewanyana, at least back home. They almost spent 2 years on remand, which is just too long a time.
18 months, to be particular.
Yeah, 18 months, yes.
Yeah.
But after the release, the information that has been going around that there was some kind of behind-the-scene deals that were made. So were these two gentlemen, the Honorable Members of Parliament, released using some kind of political persuasion and pressure other than legal means?
Patrick, I've said this before, and I want to repeat it here on this national television, that the duty I owed these comrades was to ensure that they go through a fair process of court. And once the judicial process was vacated, void bail, the rest I cannot explain. And because you do not have company while in detention, only you and you can tell the kind of conversation that take place in prison. I have visited them more than 5 times in detention, initially in Ruzira and when they were transferred to Chigo. And every time I have had occasion to interact with them, we have discussed so many issues, and I normally go with 1, 2, 3, 4 comrades in Parliament. So I have not had a conversation about the said negotiations. So my sense is that the best people to best represent that allegation are these two honorable gentlemen. And I want to ask the country to allow them space to recuperate wherever they are, because the last time I made contact with them 2 days ago, they informed me they are not yet in good shape to speak to the country. And as a human being, I am able to understand and say, well, they will speak. They are not dumb. They have not lost their mind. They should be able to speak. And if anybody out there, other than them, was part of some form of negotiation to occasion their release, that person should be fair enough to the country and come out and speak about it. But you see, particularly like I said earlier on, this is part of the very, very condensing politics of our country, that these two honorable members of Parliament have been in detention for 18 months, and the debate is not about the person that's been holding on to them illegally. The debate is not on the DPP and attendant agencies of state that have failed to have them produced in court for bail. The debate is not on the judiciary that have played ball with the state to have these two members denied bail, even when mandatory bail fell due, because we thought when bail initially failed that at least after the 180 days that are stipulated in our laws, they would automatically have bail. You know, so the debate is shifting to something different. That this was, first of all, did somebody hold on to them so that they can negotiate their release? But two, they had a negotiation, but the cases remain. They were never dropped. So I want to hear from them.
Let me say this very clearly. Yeah. I'm sure you have heard this. Probably you've read it on social media. The fingers are being pointed at you, your neighbor Matthias Mpuuga, that you have had discussion with the government for the release of these members of Parliament. Whereas I really want them to be released. The issue here with your colleagues and other people who are opposing you is that you are in bed with the government to discuss behind the scene deals. Unfortunately, I have not been able to verify this. I'm only bringing it up because it is so much, there's so much veil in the grapevine about you and your brand of politics.
You know, Patrick, I want to say this the umpteenth time, that that conversation is, first of all, very, very, very disturbing, and nobody comes up to own it, okay? So throwing it in my face and on social media, I know it's a serious debate. But I also know that the people who have been holding on to these MPs probably have been using them as a weapon to try and destabilize and fracture the opposition. And if they are going to weaponize their illegal detention, that's their trouble.
The Honorable Norbert Mao, Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, said there were things he did. So I don't know whether, at least he says there were things for this.
So,
but
so
on this one...
in inviting me, why didn't you invite Mao to be here and explain to the country? I don't speak to Mao. I don't belong to his party. I don't work for his ministry. I'm not his spokesperson. This is
what your own party president said today in the launch of the Kunga campaign, that he's not aware of these deals. So he does not blame you for anything, at least in public. I've not heard him. But he said there seems to be some sellouts within the party, and watch out for them. The issue of probable sellouts within NUP, is it a major concern?
The best way of debating and bring out sellouts is to expose them. Okay? For anyone to simply come out and make blanket accusations and blackmail is unfortunate. And this cannot take place on NTV. I have known you as a more robust journal.
Let me put it this. I'm only quoting
That's what I'm
your
saying.
party president, whom you actually seated with this afternoon, when he was expressing a concern and telling his party supporters to watch out because there are some people.
What did you expect him to do?
So did you expect him?
What did you expect him to do?
Should he have named names there?
Of course, I've known my president as being open. If you had any idea of, in fact, he even said that I had this conversation with the LOP, and as now we know, the LOP doesn't know any such negotiations, and that at the moment we can only take that as a destabilizing rumor mill that we cannot take seriously. But Patrick, invite Mao here, so that you do not try to waste people's time. Invite him to explain what he said. If he had any conversation about their release, and that because a negotiation is a give and take, I would love to know the kind of deal they made. You know, Mao is a deal maker. He made a deal for DP only for him only to benefit. So I don't know what kind of deal he made, like I said. But if he made one, first of all, the question would be, as Minister for Justice, for you making a deal to have these two gentlemen released, is it an indictment of the judiciary? That the judiciary does not have capacity on its own to say these two members of parliament should be out on bail because their matter cannot be prosecuted while they're in jail for no reason?
But at least I remember
the
Chief Justice talked about that.
So that's why I'm saying that, Comrade Mao, as a Minister for Justice of the regime, should come and tell us whether, in his view, the negotiation happened because the judiciary was either cowed or really so timid to make a decision on bail.
So let me ask
that's his space. That's not my space.
Is it your brand of leadership and politics of reaching out across the aisle that perhaps is being misunderstood, and then some people will just label you and point at, look at him? Is that an issue?
Patrick, I am the leader of the opposition in Parliament.
You are.
And because I'm the leader of the opposition, Parliament is not occupied by the opposition alone. There are other people. And in Parliament, I speak to everyone who is in Parliament, from the Prime Minister to the Speaker to every minister. That is my space.
Is that probably what has been misunderstood?
I don't think anybody misunderstands it. Some people just choose to be naive and want their naivety to occupy the national space. Okay?
You were quoted, and in fact there is a clip of you, Hon Matthias Mpuuga, going around, I think last week. You are saying that some people you should accept to be led. And that also was understood to mean, I mean, exactly, whom were you addressing?
So if you're leader of the opposition,
no,
so are you reading space? If you're the leader, then the call was that.
Whom were you addressing on that issue? Some people must accept to be led. Whom were you addressing?
I was addressing Ugandans who desire change. That if you want change, then change must be in such a way that you listen to a particular level of command. Everyone cannot be commanding. When you're commanding from every corner, then you're going to scatter the forces. It was a simple message.
Is there some kind of scattering within NUP?
Certainly the enemy is scattering us, not just in NUP, but the opposition. You have this enemy who's occupied space for 37 years, is not asleep. They want to keep their power. So you must act smart. And when you see your people from your backyard in the opposition acting naively, being played by your opponent, you have a duty to speak out. You have a duty to raise their conscience. You have a duty to tell them to actually smell the coffee and say, hey, don't just act out of turn. Listen to the command. That's how things are done.
So by the time a leader, says you accept to be led, then for sure you must have seen a lot of... And
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
You are contending with a lot of defiance within your own office.
Necessarily not, because I occupy a vantage position.
Because that was understood to mean trying to call people in order for those who are not even...
You should
understanding your leadership.
No, you should have understood the context of that statement. And for the record, I was not making a reference to members of parliament. I was speaking to the rank and file in the opposition. Okay? And the fracturing of the opposition is not a secret. It's known. You've been in the media, you know it. So the leaders in the opposition have a duty to speak out. I don't think I'm the only one who's been speaking about this. It's been spoken about. Probably my voice is louder on this subject.
Are you finding problems in people in the opposition and particularly your party accepting your leadership, accepting to be led?
At least no one has rejected me in the people I lead.
No, in the statement you make, it's understood to mean that you are finding a lot of opposition.
So we have members and we have supporters. Okay? You don't have a lot of control with supporters. We have control over members. And if you want to have the supporters over whom you don't have control, you've got to speak out. The members have a code. You can call them to order using the code of the party. So my message was out onto the non-members, but the supporters of the clarion call for change. So it was not really a rebuttal for rebellion. But because I know there are so many Ugandans out there that want to see Uganda move anew, but somehow they're asking questions about how it's supposed to be done. And there's so many voices out there. And my message was that if you want this to be done, then you must listen to a particular voice and message. Don't listen to voices from Ebizindaro in the corners. Listen to a voice that is organized on how things are done, and that remains my message. In fact, today, at the launch of Kunga, I re-echoed the same message, that please go there and ask our people to be aligned. We cannot be scattered and then purport to be trying to reignite a new and different Uganda. We are where we are because even the regime is scattered. You have a command of land forces wanting to be president. You have the president doing other things. So it's confusion. It's organized chaos. I don't want us to be wanting to lead a country in a manner that the current people are leading us because they're disorganized. You have a prime minister quarreling over iron sheets with the minister, with the poor people. That's organized chaos. So the message should be, this is the way things are done. And I'm saying, please listen. If we must move to a particular destination, all of us cannot be commanding this movement. Or you must listen to voices of reason and say, this is the way. Even when you think you have your way, let your message come through, systematically processed, and then we agree on how it should be done.
Are you being listened to?
A lot of people are listening. That's why you are making a difference.
There have been...
You doubt the fact that I am making a difference in the way things are done?
Well, the thing is, when you made that statement, for me, it presupposes you have seen some contradictions and some resistance and some defiance. And you're trying to call people in order because they were not.
Because the opposition front...
That's what I see. That's what I read from the statement.
The opposition front is various. And for NUP as the vanguard opposition party, and I'm the leader of the opposition, I have that duty, not just for NUP, but for all forces. For the record, Parliament has 6 political parties, but we have other parties. And people that are not aligned to any party out there that but want to say New Uganda, what's my duty as the law? Is call them to order and say, hey, you are scattered. We have the numbers to make the difference. We have the reasons to allow everyone But that is only feasible when we listen to a single voice, not to multiple voices. So that's my role, and I'll continue doing that until we have everyone aligned and move in the same direction.
I understand the leader of opposition, you lead up to around 2.5 years, right?
That's true.
So I know you're running your course, but is Matthias Mpuuga likely to continue the other next half?
That can be my preoccupation. It's not about positions. I am a member of a party in which I'm MP, I'm deputy president, and leader of the opposition. It is actually a tour of duty. And this role, NUP does not have a deficit of able men and women.
Yeah, but now I'm talking about you, whether you still have you still have the confidence and the favor of the appointing authority to continue you serving in the same position.
Fortunately or unfortunately, that job is a debate in the party. We sit and make a decision at a higher level. And unfortunately or fortunately, I am part of that decision. So whichever decision that will come out, I'll be a part, and we shall carry on. There's no crisis, there's no deficit.
With all respect, can Matthias be fired by the Honorable Kyagulanyi?
Firing?
Yeah.
I think firing speaks something different. Firing connotes...
relieve you of the duty.
Firing connotes coercion. There's no coercion in the NUP. We are a young party. We debate over so many things and even discuss options on who will do what. And that's absolutely normal, to look at the permutations and triangulations on what will be done and who can best do it.
Because what I gather from the NUP headquarters, it appears that he's thinking otherwise.
That's not my space. That's not my space. I have a tour of duty for 2.5 years, and I'm doing it in the way I know it. And the rest is not for me to decide, and I cannot be preoccupied by that. I am trying to do what I must do for a young organization, to give it a face, to posit the kind of issues that will make Ugandans believe in this young organization, renew hope for a better Uganda. I cannot be listening to noise from every corner. Some of what you hear is just a noise.
Honorable Matthias Mpuuga, hold on to your point, because we are going to take a break. When we come back, believe you me, I'm going to be digging deep. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is the leader of opposition, the Honorable Matthias Mpuuga. You know, there are some members of parliament who are in the opposition, and they're feeling in there, when you talk to them, they feel that you have not represented them well. And that seems to cause some acrimony. What would you tell them?
Unfortunately, I've not done a census on support. I've only had a census on what I have done as the LOP. And when I set out to outline a catalogue of things that I thought are dear to the citizenry, I did not look into the individual faces of members of parliament that desired that I play appeasement to them. And my office and my work methods are open in nature. And if anybody has an issue or a question or a challenge or questioning the wisdom of my action and decisions, I'm available for questioning. But you see, that House of Parliament is the house of interests. And sometimes the interests are not declared. And they smolder and simmer when people do not declare them. And instead, they form part of the smoldering acrimony of interests. When I don't get to know them, unfortunately, I'm not able to attend to them. So for the comrades that have not summoned the courage to come up to me and make a case with me, and they choose to complain in the corridors, I think they are cowards, and they have no space in leadership, because the commonality of people interest is such that when you have a challenge and you have a leader, you rise up to the leader and speak about it. If you choose to keep quiet and then complain, then you're not different from an ordinary citizen. Yet you are elected to come and speak on these issues. And there's not a single matter you can drive alone in Parliament. you need to work with others. So my methods of work are facilitative enough for anybody to come up and complain or seek to be helped or advised on how to work. So unfortunately, because I do not know those comrades, I do not know the kind of help or the scope and breadth of their complaint. How I wish I get to know.
Let me take you a little bit out of Parliament, because the other interests outside of Parliament. You have stated before, and other leaders in the opposition, of the missing young people, especially supporters of National Unity Platform. What is their case, and what is the status of these missing people? Well, not the status, but what can you tell us?
Unfortunately, Patrick, the people I initially enlisted as missing are still missing. A month ago, the government tried to claim that they have an idea of only 5. The last list I tabled on the floor of Parliament had 25 missing persons. And there was an attempt to claim that the missing 25 are part of the group that was arrested on account of attacking police installations, or military installations for that matter. But there was no clarity to that effect. But secondly, and most disturbing, is that the abductions have not ceased. By the end of the last week, we had reports of 3 young men that were picked from Nakaseke, and their whereabouts are not known. And this trajectory continues. Patrick, we are speaking about abductions because people are picked by regime security, their family members are not informed, they are not informed of the reason for the arrest, the local leadership is not informed, the LCs, they are picked by unrecognizable individuals in unregistered, in vehicles without number plates. Those are abductions, and they're kept incommunicado. And the police or the military is not able to come out and declare that we have so and so for this kind of case. And some of them are charged discreetly, either in the court martial or on some of the courts in the countryside. So they are very disturbing situations. And this particular problem is going to be a major preoccupation in Parliament, because by the time we went into recess, we had put a case before Parliament for the Prime Minister to come and explain the whereabouts of these citizens. And it never came through. We're still waiting for it. But in the meantime, more are being abducted, and there's no explanation. But like I said here before, Patrick, we are aware that the regime is trying to set a political score by trying to arrest and cause fear in the countryside amongst our supporters, especially NUP supporters, are targeted. And but because we've been around at some stage, it was FDC supporters that were specifically criminals. And it's a replay of the same tactic, that once they are defeated, like they were defeated in the last election and they stole it, they're trying to instill fear in the public to stop the agitation for change and to claim and try to demand for transparency in the way the country is governed. It's an attempt to settle a political score, and that will not happen.
So there is a government agency that is mandated to fight for to defend the human rights of Uganda, the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Do you have any iota of respect and confidence that it can actually work towards defending human rights of Ugandans, and how much have you worked with the Uganda Human Rights Commission on this very issue?
We have the organization and then the individuals. I have a bit of respect for the organization. I have a bit of issues with some of the individuals in that commission. And you have seen some of their statements. In one such statement, they were responding to my list of 25, and they put in quotes, abducted. And in their conclusion, they're saying they cannot trace them. They were not in prison, they were not in court, they were nowhere. And they're saying abduction in quotes, meaning that they even doubt their own work. So the Uganda Human Rights Commission has a duty to prove that they are worth their name. And some of the statements from the agents have been unsettling, from especially their leader, the chairperson, are not really comforting enough. She believes, for example, that the complaints are meant to portray government in bad light, and the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission. In fact, he thinks the complaints are too much, you know, and you can read that from her statements and her, written and verbal. I know some of the commissioners are really serious citizens. I've known Mr. Kahiru and others, my sister Shifra and others, even other senior citizens there. I think they have a duty to really make a case and prove their worth while there.
So because of the leadership right now of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, does that mean you're reluctant to actually even work with them?
No, it's not just about working with them. We have raised complaints with them. In fact, even tomorrow, we are submitting a list of 4 to them. And they have decided to go and question state agencies where these people are. The abductees from Nakaseke and other places. So we continue to challenge them to do their job. Not that we really respect them a lot or have a lot of trust in them, but they are there and they consume taxpayers' money. They must really account for their existence. And we are submitting more names. Let them explain whether they're in charge or not.
So for these young men who have had an opportunity to come back, what are they telling you?
I think their tales have been all over. The level of disrespect for human life and the dignity of human life is unspeakable. Acts of torture, abuse. Patrick, I would tell you and viewers that when eventually the cows come home, there'll be a lot of explaining by so many actors in this regime as how they allowed this to happen under their watch. That somebody can be burned by a flat iron, their nails removed. You have seen these pictures. You remember the case of Masereka, tortured at Mbuya and dumped at a police station from Mbuya military. And we know the commander of that agency. You torture a citizen, you remove their nails. The records are there. Our duty now is to collect as much evidence as possible. Probably one day, we shall have accountability for every crime committed against citizens. It simply can't end like that. And we are aware it's the reason why, because of the crimes committed against citizens, that particular players in the understate do not want to see regime change. And one of the challenges, Patrick, that the country must debate is whether Gen 7 is still in charge. Or actually, we have several layers of the deep state that have since taken on different roles, and therefore, nobody's in charge.
And how do you reach at that?
Can this go on when you have a person in charge that on a daily basis, you have citizens abducted and tortured, and somehow it goes on and on? It's not the culture of the state, then the center is no longer holding. If the culture of the state, then we can understand, and then we can say that actually they have elected to treat citizens like animals. In fact, even animals are respected. Animals have rights too. But here is the country where you have a head of state and a commander-in-chief, and somehow nobody is in charge. That you can take somebody at Mbuya, torture them, dump them at a police station, and life goes on. That you go to Kasese, pick an old man called Muhoja, bring him to Chileka, have him killed, bury him in a cemetery in Kampala. Then on a Tuesday, a police spokesperson says he fell in a police bathroom and died. The following week, body exhumed, returned to Kasese, and life goes on. The question is, who is in charge?
I don't know, but at least on the issue of beatings for people in custody, the president came out at one point talking about your own president, but the president, he looked at him and that he had been beaten properly.
That's a question, that is in charge, or actually is a man
at least that's a statement he made.
Suffering his own confusion and not able to understand. That's very dangerous to allow the military and the people in uniform to behave the way they are behaving. You know? Is General Museveni a man still in charge? Is the question. That if for him to even make that statement that the Honorable Kyagulanyi has been well beaten, would that come from somebody in charge? Or someone actually in flight? You
had a legislative agenda that in Parliament. I wonder how far you've gone in realization of this agenda. And you also had you had so much wanted about some reforms. I wonder how far we've gone in that area. If you can talk to us on the legislative agenda that you come up with.
Patrick, it's not an event. It was a composition of aspirations driven by the desire to see that Parliament is effectual and impacts on the hopes and aspirations and the frustrations of our people. And myself and my team have been working on the tidbits of legislation, of policy, and this is 1 year and 3 months for your information.
Yes.
And I think we have been able to impact on legislation. We have a number of bills that have been given a green light on the floor of Parliament. At the beginning of the year, I did communicate that we are going to prioritize consultations to occasion constitutional and electoral reforms. And at this stage, I'm still doing the internal consultations in my party to establish the best way of going about this, because it's not a preserve of NUP, but an obligation that we intend to execute with all interested people, citizens, civil society, religious institutions, cultural institutions, and media and civil society. So we're doing the internal consultations to be able to consider how to frame these issues that I am raising with my colleagues in the party, at the vanguard opposition party, now that we know that the regime is not interested in seeing major reform that can occasion reconstituting a new constitutional order that can give Ugandans hope that we are able to hold a free and a fair election and have a durable constitution and eventually a constitutional order that is predictable.
But what are your own proposals as you go to the people? What is it that you want to propose when you're bouncing off ideas from them? What is it that you're telling them in terms of what you need to see?
It's not that we're going to simply hand over microphones and ask them to tell us. We have some ideas on the more sticky issues in our constitution that relate to the failed governance, issues to do with the term limits, electoral reforms, the role of the military, the size of Parliament, the functionality of local governments. That's the debate on devolution of power. We have our views that we want to share with the country and how we can reconstitute and reconfigure local government. You are aware, Patrick, that we have since vacated decentralization. Centralization has long taken place. The center decides everything, and local governments are yawning and unable to function. They are dysfunctional, and we need a conversation on the nature and scope and configuration of devolution of power in this country. And the other debates about electoral reforms, the way the electoral commission is constituted, the role of the military in our elections, their presence in Parliament.
So do you think really you're going to have people who across the aisle and who are even the majority that will give you their ear to listen to you, to dialogue with them, if actually this dialogue can end up by dialoguing themselves out of power?
You see, the problem with you and the other elites believe that this country is going to end with this regime. And that's why you believe that there should be no debate. And therefore, we should play along. We are legislating for posterity.
I'm pointing at the reality of the kind of engagement you're likely to see, and the resistance that you're likely to meet.
And the reality is that this country is not going to end with this regime, and we owe it to our children and grandchildren to occasion.
You're doing this for posterity.
To occasion a debate that is going to stabilize this country finally. When eventually the country regime and their hangers-on have their fill, I have no doubt that a new conversation about the future of this country will emerge. We want to offer leadership to that conversation. But I'm also aware that within the regime, there are people that feel about this country. They need a platform to speak. They need a platform to give their views, and it's our duty to give this platform. If nobody is willing to offer it, we're not going to wait for sympathy from anyone. We want to lead from the front. If it happens tomorrow, we'd be happy to be a part. If it happens and we have started it, we would say we are part of the investiture to occasion a conversation about this country, and we shall not know regrets.
Honorable Matthias Mpuuga, hold on to your point, because we are going to take a break. When we come back, I'll be giving you the opportunity to have your say. That's when you pick your phone and call us, but also you can send us your comments or questions on our WhatsApp number. I will be able to read them so that the Honorable Matthias Mpuuga would respond. And also I want to ask him about, the decline or the decreasing integrity deficit we see in Uganda, especially now with the allegations of defrauding the vulnerable Karamoja. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Welcome back to On the Spot. Welcome back to On the Spot, and my name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is the leader of opposition, the Honorable Matthias Mpuuga. There's a question here that has come. Patrick, thank you for the show. I'm saying is that dialoguing today in Uganda's politics is the only solution left to end up all the so-called sorts of violence. And what I'm also waiting for is a presidential pardon on the remaining political prisoners. This is Sembusi Ivan. What do you tell Sembusi?
Sembusi is making reference to a possibility of dialogue. And we have said before, and now I restate, that nobody is scared of dialogue. But the issue is, what nature of dialogue? Dialogue with who on what? In essence, we're talking about structured dialogue, where the participants are defined, where the moderators are agreeable, and the framework for implementing the decision taken is also agreeable. Not just dialogue about prisoners. The question is, why do you have political prisoners? Should you dialogue about that? My view is that you should respect the law. The judicial system should be able to handle that. It's not a matter of dialogue. That's my take. That's our take. Dialogue should be about how to evolve a constitutional order in this country where everybody is bound.
Okay, I'm going to be opening the line so that you two, wherever you are, you can pick your phone and call us and tell us what you think. Maybe you have a question for the Honorable Matthias Mpuuga. The number is on the screen. Please call us and tell us what you think. And as you do that, I just want to shift gears a little bit and look into northeastern Uganda, because the allegations of people in positions of leadership that are supposed to be helping those in need, now we see, unbelievable allegations of defrauding the vulnerable in Karamoja. And I've seen now members of parliament from Karamoja parliamentary group is taking a decision to censure the minister for Karamoja because of those allegations. What do you make of that?
Well, Patrick, first of all, I am shocked that you're surprised. It's like asking the people of Masaka to stop growing coffee. Stopping people in NUP from stealing would be asking them to go and hang. stealing is a sector under NRM. It's a whole sector, it's an enterprise where people thrive, and it's been proven over time. So for me, it's a question of who is caught and who is not caught. In fact, the race is a contest there. And I'm sure they even discuss on who is smarter, who was caught, and how reckless they were.
Stop the flowery language, that's not true. But the truth is, there's a problem of integrity.
My name is Makolo Kavuma.
Mr. Makolo Kavuma.
I would like to take this opportunity to first of all thank Hon Matthias Mpuuga
yes,
for the service he has rendered to Ugandans, and to thank him to see that he has tried to see that our members of parliament are still together. First of all, I would like to tell this nation, negotiations are not bad, but on which basis? We need negotiation based on principles. So I am one of those who thinks that negotiations are not bad, but basing on principles.
Okay.
Secondly, Mr. Museveni should not think that negotiation should be for him bribing our leaders. Those are not negotiations. So that's my view on that.
Mr. Kavuma.
Lastly, on these ministers, for me I call them thieves who have stolen irons. Imagine irons, and they are still calling themselves ministers. It's unbelievable.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kavuma. You said thank you so much, Mr. Kavuma. Yeah, sometimes when you hear those allegations, the honorables, they don't be almost, the word is closer to horrible. So let me take one more call and then you can respond to all of them. Hello, I have a call online. Hello.
Leader.
Yes, sir. Oh, the voice was a bit muffled up there, and I'm trying just to pick one or two more so that you can be able to respond to all of them at once. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. I have a call online. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And please go straight for your question or comment. All right. All right. I think let me first leave them. Yeah, and it looks like Mr. Kavuma is talking about negotiations are good, even though you have not.
Of course, there's the same, subject I was speaking about earlier, that nobody should really parade negotiations as the stalemate. We are not facing a stalemate because of failure of negotiations. It's a question of dictatorship and autocracy and militarism that is taking root. And you cannot invite us for a negotiation while you're putting a knee on our neck. Negotiations are a subject matter of the free. It's not a subject matter of, of prisoners. That's why you cannot make an agreement in prison. That kind of agreement can be vacated because it's under duress. It's an environment of duress. So whoever wants to speak about negotiations, we speak about the environment. That's why people talk about the principle, the environment and the subject matter, the participants, the framework for implementation, the facilitators, all that. And it's not about Museveni and his people. That's why for us as NUP, we are for a people's consensus. That's why I've said variously here, and I restate that the current constitutional framework does not represent a people's consensus. And therefore we need to go back to the people and rethink and debate with them and have a conversation with them about their fresh new aspirations. The current one has since been vacated. There's a total misrepresentation of the people's views. So whoever wants to negotiate, you cannot negotiate in this kind of environment. But if Mr. Museveni believes that he's holding on these prisoners as ransom, we cannot negotiate. over prisoners that we ask people to climb down on their demands for democracy and human rights, that when I free you, don't make further demands on democracy and human rights. That would be most unfortunate. That's why we are saying you cannot come out and say, I have negotiated for release over a matter for which you are holding these people as a ransom after failure to prosecute their case, yet you are the one accusing them. After failing to prosecute your case, then you say you have negotiated their release. That's most unfortunate. It's an abuse of court, because what should the judge in Masaka say? That actually did not find it fit for these people to have bail, but somebody sent a cheat and say, please free them.
Okay. Honorable Matthias Mpuuga.
What happens to the honor of this honorable justice?
In the time of interest and time, in the interest of time, as we try to conclude our discussion, there are two questions I'm going to make very general, and you respond to them. When you look at Ugandan politics right now, what frustrates you and what gives you hope?
No, the frustration is that there's no space for us to debate the future of this country. At the beginning of this program, you were warning us about the fact that when we take Kunga to the people, you're sure as night falls day, they will be beaten in pulp. That's unfortunate. For me, the shrinking civic space is most disturbing.
And actually, the civil society is saying that NUP, the biggest opposition party, has not come out helping enough in trying to fight for that civic space that is shrinking.
And equally at NUP, we believe that civil society today is so cowed and is increasingly becoming an appendage of the state. They need to free themselves from being an appendage of the state and speak out, even at the risk of being closed, like so many have been closed. Probably it will take closure of so many of them, including political parties, for everyone to realize that we are each other's people.
The exit of Democracy Governance Facility, DGF, has actually been a serious blow to the civil society and the government itself and the economy as well.
But that's what happens when you are facing militarism, because they don't care whether so many people are going to lose jobs and the economy is shrinking. As long as they can afford to buy tear gas and bullets, the rest do not matter. So I am so concerned about the shrinking civic space, and it's the reason why we have abductions, we have murder, and nobody has been aligned before court. That's why the debate about the future of this country is very polarizing. There's fear for a new constitutional order because people fear to lose power. That's why son and the father believe that they have a birthright to rule, and the rest have a duty to follow. That's very condensing and polarizing a polity.
And who is the hope?
The hope lies in the fact that Ugandans have fought dictatorships before. This is not the first and last. Somehow, we shall have our moment as Ugandans to say enough is enough. I have a lot of promise in our demographic composition that there's so many young people out there that want to see a different Uganda, that you cannot preach to them how you fought and what you fought for, because whatever you claim as the motivation for your fighting for 5 years no longer makes sense. I'm very sure that this demographic dividend will occasion an even faster conversation for a new Uganda in whichever form it will take. I cannot predict, but as night falls day, it's going to happen. And the better we are prepared for it and be a part of it, the better. There's no amount of, cajoling or even force that will stop that when it happens finally. It will happen, and I live in that hope and promise.
Honorable Matthias, what's going to be your parting shot?
To initially thank you and ask of you and the rest of the elite in this country to rise up and play your part.
Thank you so much. Honorable Matthias Mpuuga, the leader of opposition, thank you so much for having given us your time. We have a good country, and I think we are good people. And we are also very resilient Ugandans. Before, we have seen ourselves in sometimes big trouble. Whenever we're thrown in the deep end, Ugandans, we know how to swim and swim out. It's my belief and hope that whatever deep end you are in, you'll get out of it. And for you who has been a part of this discussion, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Good night and God bless you, Uganda.